me start this. So, hi, my name is Niels, and I also go by Swimberger online. I work for Twilio, and it's my full-time job to write tutorials and blog posts just to help out the .NET community as much as possible. So it's really a cool job because it's my job to just serve all of you, which I like to do. And it doesn't have to be about Twilio, so you can check us out at twilio.com/blog, and I'll have a bunch of .NET tutorials just for non-Twilio stuff and for just Twilio stuff as well. I also have a personal blog at on swimberger.net, but I'm also always tweeting about all the blog posts and content that I'm publishing. But it's not just me writing; it's also a lot of people from the community that are writing, and I work with them and edit their work, and then publish it on the Twilio blog as well. So if you would like to try that out, feel free to check out this link, twilio.com/voices. Now, I did want to say, this is not my first time at this meetup. I think I've been here for 6-7 years, although, a lot of people probably don't know me because I'm not the most social. I'm kind of like an introverted extrovert. So, I want to hang out with people, but I have too much social anxiety to actually go up to them. But, it's all good. Anyway, so we're going to talk about Twilio and .NET today. So what does Twilio do? I think some folks are familiar with Twilio. It's, kind of a well-known name within the technology space, but at the same time, there's lots of people that don't know about it. So I think it's most famous for the telecommunication APIs. You can send text messages, you can make phone calls, send emails, you can do video chat, all those kind of communication between folks. And it's first API based, so any language, any platform will be able to communicate with those APIs, and then you can build your own telecommunication applications. Now, Twilio has kind of expanded, and I don't think this is as relevant for software developers. But Twilio also has products to engage customers and also personalize every interaction with your customers to ensure that the customer experience is just fabulous. But I'm mostly interested in APIs and what you can do with those. All right. Don't text this yet. I have to run the application first. Let's see. This application opt-in service. And this service will allow you to opt into the demos today. One second. Let me try to copy this. Usually I'm using my own keyboard and mouse and not the Mac OS keyboard. So it's a little confusing for me. Okay. Copy paste is not working, so I'm just going to type it over. So good. And now, if you want to participate in today's demos, you'll be receiving text messages, phone calls, and emails. You can answer them or you can just ignore them. That's fine. But I think it's kind of cool if you can see how the code that I'm showing you is actually texting you and making phone calls, etc. So you can use the QR code, which will pre-populate the words opt-in, and then if you text that to that number, you'll be opted into the demos that I'm going to be showing, and the same for email. So if you, there are separate demos. One is explicitly opting you into for like calls and SMS, but if you also want to receive the emails, you have to do a separate email opt-in by putting opt-in as a subject line when you send an email to demo@sendgrid.swimworker.net. But if you use the QR code, it will be pre-filled. So I'll give you a little bit of time if you want to do that. Let me try this myself too. Awesome. I texted opt-in and then I got a response saying opt-in successful. Does the same thing happen for you? There's a chat message. I see a chat here.
Yes, opt-in is successful.
Awesome. And same thing for the email.
Yes, opt-in is successful.
Awesome. Let me copy this text into the chat just so that everybody can do it at their own pace as well. Uh-oh. Without formatting, maybe. No, it doesn't let me paste without formatting. So you'll have to do it with the really big text. I'm sorry. And with the very small text. So I already mentioned a couple other products that we have. But I think the most interesting thing for .NET developers and for any developer is the channel APIs. So those are all the communication, all the ways that you can communicate through our APIs. And today we're going to take a look at those three that are circled in red. So programmable messaging, which you can use to send text messages, MMS, and WhatsApp messages. Then programmable voice, which you can use to make voice calls, either from one phone number to another phone number, or from a phone number to like voice over IP service, or mix and match as you would like. And then there's Twilio SendGrid, which is a way for sending and receiving emails. There's also programmable video, but I won't be touching on that today. Now, maybe you know this, but Twilio SendGrid was SendGrid before Twilio acquired it. And because of this history, the APIs are very different. And so that's why I include this picture, because it's a different SDK, it's a different API. It's a little bit of a different experience, but they all work. So that's the important part. Now, if you want to use the channel APIs for outgoing communication, so sending text messages, starting a phone call, then you'll use the SDK, or you can use the API directly by sending HTTP requests. But SDK is a lot easier because you don't have to manually write those HTTP requests. Or you can even use the CLI, which is pretty useful. So here I have an example of what it would look like if you send the HTTP code. You write the HTTP code. Now, I don't want you to like read every line. I just want you to get an impression of, okay, this is a lot of code. I don't want to do that. I don't want to deal with this. Then when you're using the SDK, it's a lot less code. And so it will look like this. And then lastly, the CLI is really easy, but you can't really use CLI inside of your applications. But it can be very helpful for testing things out. Okay, but what about incoming communication? Like, how are you going to receive a text message or a phone call or an email? Well, for that, we use webhooks at Twilio, and webhooks are kind of the opposite of APIs. With APIs, I think I have a diagram here. With APIs, your application decides to request some resources, receive that resource back. You want something to happen. Now, with webhooks, it's kind of the other way around. Twilio will send an HTTP request to your service instead of you to Twilio's service. So whenever a text message or phone call happens, or you get an email, Twilio will send HTTP request to the service that you configured, letting you know, hey, this happens. And then you can respond and act accordingly. So in one sentence, webhooks are user-defined HTTP callbacks. So if you want to implement webhooks, you can either receive the HTTP request from Twilio and then write your HTTP responses yourself. And in some advanced scenarios, you actually have WebSockets and WebRTC for transmitting audio data or video data. But the easiest way to receive webhooks and respond to webhooks is using the Twilio helper library for ASP.NET. All right, so let's get started. Feel free to follow along if you want. Pretty straightforward, so you should be able to follow. It's not like a lab, so I'm not gonna wait for anyone. But I'm gonna provide all the instructions that you need to do everything that we're gonna do today. So the first thing you wanna do is get a free account by going to www.twilio.com/trytwilio. And here you can sign up with your email address, first name. It will ask you to validate a phone number, but it won't require a credit card. Now, once you have done that, you can go. Oh yes, a little note about trial accounts. When you first create an account, your account is going to be a trial account, which means that you'll have certain limitations. When you send text messages, it will say it's sent from a trial account before your actual message. When you do like an outbound call, it will first give you some trial message that you hear spoken out loud. But you can also only send outgoing messages and calls to verified caller IDs. These verified caller IDs, you can add those, and really what it requires is for you to enter a phone number, and then Twilio will send you a text message with a code, and then you put that text message into the web interface, and now Twilio knows, oh, hey, you own this phone number, so it's a verified caller ID. So the moment you do that, and this is usually part of the sign-up process, the moment you do that, you'll be able to send text messages and phone calls to that phone number. But once you upgrade your account, you can send text messages, to any phone number or calls to any phone number. But we just want to make sure that people don't abuse this system and spam people. So. Now, with the trial account, you'll get some trial credit as well. I'm not sure how much it is. I think it, changes over time, but I think it's around $15 now. And then every text message is maybe a couple cents. I'm not sure. So you'll have like plenty of room to experiment with. Let me head to the Twilio console. So after you log in, after you signed up, you log into the Twilio console. This is kind of what it will look like. You can explore, like if some of these things on the left side, navigation elements on the left side are missing, you can click on Explore Products and then hit the pin icon. Just want to make sure that you know that's there. And then it will be on the left side. But what I wanted to show you is here you can buy any new phone number that's available in Twilio's pool of phone numbers for many different countries. But since we're in the United States, I think it makes sense to get a phone number from the United States. And we're located in Virginia, so I'm going to search for a phone number that starts with 703, which is Virginia's area code. And here you can see a list of phone numbers, including, Lorton is nearby from here. There's probably a bunch of cities that are from nearby that I don't know about. Dallas Metro is very close here. So you can get any of these phone numbers that are, from the area that you would like to use. And you just click buy, and then you click buy again, and it will give you the phone number. And it will use the trial credit for the monthly fee and for all of the usage. So I have already done that. I got a couple of phone numbers here. Now, one of these phone numbers is the one that I'm using for that opt-in, so that's this one. Now, when you buy, you can see that there's capabilities. Most importantly, there's voice and SMS and MMS. Make sure that those are present on the phone number that you buy if you need that capability. Now, there's also fax, but we don't do fax anymore, so it doesn't really matter whether you want that or not. Awesome. Then we're going to go to the first demo. So I have a couple of projects here. I have a project for incoming communication that's webhook based that I said, and then the outgoing communication, which is using the SDK. Now, I already added the Twilio SDK to this. So if you look at the packages, here you see Twilio version 6.2.4. I also added SendGrid to send emails. And then just user secrets, because I'm storing the account ID and API keys in user secrets. So let me show the code. So to load those user secrets, to store, to retrieve my secrets, I'm using the configuration builder, adding a JSON file, user secrets. I'm not going to show those because I don't want to leak my API key. Not that I don't trust you, but I'm cautious. Now, I stored anyone that opted in their phone numbers and their email address into a file. So that's the opt-in repository that you see over here. You don't have to look at this code too much. Oh, this is probably pretty small. Let's see. Command plus. I just do this. Okay, cool. Oh, that's better. All right, so you don't have to worry about these. That's just to get all of those phone numbers and email addresses that we're going to send text messages to and make phone calls towards. What I do want you to see is that I'm getting the account SID and the auth token from my user secrets, from my configuration. And you can get those from the Twilio console. So back here, when I click on demos, to get back to the main page of the Twilio console, you can see there's an account SID and an auth token here. Now you want to copy these and then put them in your .NET configuration, preferably in a secure storage mechanism. You don't check it into GitHub. That's why I'm using user secrets. But using something like Key Vault or another type of vault service or environment variables will be sufficient as well, as long as you don't publicly commit your secrets into GitHub. Alternatively, you can also create API keys. They work very similarly, but they're easier to manage, in my opinion. So you could create an API key for every application that you have. But the easiest way to get started is really with the account ID and auth token. Right. Now I've also stored the phone number that I bought here in configuration. That's a firm phone number. And then I also configured a name and email here that's going to be the name and the email that I'm going to send emails from. So let me put a breakpoint here and run the outgoing communication project. I'm going to try to hide that so you don't see my off token. But I do want you to see, hey, here's the phone number that I'm going to be sending an SMS and calls from. And then here's the name, demo, and the email address that I'm going to be sending emails from, demo@swimburger.net. All right, let's continue. Find my console here. All right, press any key to send messages. So I'm going to press the key and let me just fix that. I think the file corrupted. I'm splitting the phone numbers by like new line, but it seems that first going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to fix that file. All right, that's fixed. This time I'm going to let me first share my screen again. Go. So I'm going to run the application from the command line instead. Just because Writer is like showing too much local data. I don't want to accidentally show my off tokens, etc. So let's go to outgoing communication. Run. I'm going to press any key to send the messages. There you go. I send a bunch of text messages, and then everybody that opted in should shortly receive a message.
Boy.
Yes, that's what I received as well. Awesome. So let me show this code for this. So this is using the Twilio SDK. Everything okay? I am sharing my screen. It says unpresented. Maybe you need to change something. Yeah. I can stop sharing my screen and start sharing. Maybe that will help. Sharing it again. Okay. Teams is a little buggy sometimes. So this is the code for sending a text message. It's relatively simple. So you have a message resource, any resource in the Twilio API. It's kind of like the REST, what is it? Representational state transfer is that kind of terminology that Twilio is trying to follow. So any resource that you create in the API will be suffixed with resource. So message resource that create or create async. And then I have the phone number that is going to be sent towards and the phone number that is going to be sent from, which is the Twilio phone number. And then the message is ahoy. I have a bunch of other parameters on here if you're curious. So I recommend just taking a look and see what other options are doing. These are the essential parameters. Now, if you look at the output in the console, you see that every status says queued, and that's because Twilio doesn't really send the text messages immediately, then wait for you for them to be delivered, and then return the HP response. It immediately responds to you and tells you that it's queued. If you want to know whether it's been delivered, you can pull the the message by the message SID that you've been given and see if the status has changed to delivered. Or you could use the webhooks. So you could configure a status webhook, and then whenever the status changes, Twilio will send an HTTP call to your webhook, and that way you can monitor the status of your messages in real time. Awesome.
So that means if there's errors, you may not find out.
So if there's an issue with like delivering your text message, you mean, or
Sure.
yeah. So if your text message is like undeliverable for some reason, you won't know that unless you monitor the status. And so there's like a web interface for that, or you could use the API. And for emails, calls, all those things require you to have like a good reputation, so you don't like spam people. Because the worse your reputation gets, the more carriers are gonna like reject your calls or text messages or emails, or the inbox providers. So you want to monitor status for sure, to keep like a high deliverability rate. All right. So that was for outgoing communication, but what if you want to receive a text message? Well, I said before, you're going to use a webhook. So this is what the message webhook kind of looks like. When Twilio receives a text message on the Twilio phone number, it will forward the data around that text message to your application using an HTTP request. And the contrast is really low here, but above the word HTTP request, you can see a couple of data elements. It says from, to, body. So by default, your HTTP request will use an HTTP post, and then the data will be passed as a form encoded body. You can also set it to get, and then we'll use queries from parameters. Now, the interesting thing about these webhooks compared to other webhooks that you may have worked before is that you can also provide instructions in the response. So you don't have to use the Twilio SDK to respond to the text message. Instead, you can just return some XML or TWIML in this case that says, hey, respond with ahoy when you receive a text message. And then Twilio understands whatever phone number that sends the text message, and that's the phone number that you want to respond to with ahoy. I'm gonna stop this one and open another tab. Then I'm gonna open another port.
I forget what's ngrok.
Yeah, I'll talk about it. So actually, since you asked this, let me jump straight there. I don't have a slide on that today. So webhooks, they require you to be publicly available, publicly on the internet. So otherwise, Twilio won't be able to send you a HTTP request, or really any service or system that is implementing webhooks. They won't be able to send HTTP requests to your application unless you have some kind of public URL where your application is listening to. So that's a problem, because when you're developing locally, the only person that can reach your application is really you, maybe somebody on your network. To easily make that public, you can use a service like ngrok. I'm going to browse to ngrok. So ngrok is like a CLI tool that creates a secure tunnel to the internet for you. And when you start the tunnel using ngrok HTTP and then you provide a URL, that's what I did over here. So I was using this command. So I told ngrok, hey, make this local URL publicly available. And I provided a subdomain because I already pre-configured the Twilio phone number to use this subdomain. But this is a paid feature. So if you omit this, it will still work, but the URL will be random. Let me show that as well. So now the URL looks like this. It's just a random string and then .ngrok.io. But now the locally running application is publicly available over that URL. Let me stop this one again. Now, once you have this running, you're going to want to configure this on your Twilio phone number. So let me go back to the Twilio console. And then I got a phone number for the Dallas metro area. And over here, you can see when a call comes in, I want you to use a webhook that uses this URL, and that's the URL that I'm tunneling over using ngrok/voice. So I'm going to get webhook requests to this for phone calls that are coming in, and for SMS or WhatsApp messages, the HTTP requests are going to be sent here. Let's see, did this start? Yeah. So this is running now. And I commented some stuff out, which I'll explain later. But in this case, I mentioned the Twilio helper library for ASP.NET. So that's different than the Twilio SDK, because the Twilio SDK is not aware of any web frameworks. Twilio made the decision that they can't really provide an SDK for every web framework out there. I think for .NET, there's really 99% of the people are using ASP.NET or ASP.NET Core, so it actually makes more sense to do that for .NET. But for Python, there's 10 different web frameworks, or for Ruby or for Node.js, there's 10 different web frameworks, so it's not really possible to maintain. But some Twilions, including me, love ASP.NET, and so we have our own community-supported library, which is called twilio.asp.net.core for the .NET Core version, and twilio.net.mvc for the old ASP.NET Framework MVC version. So let me show you the dependencies on this one. So I added the Twilio dependency, which is the SDK, and then I also added this helper library. Let's see, how would we go to that GitHub page? So the Twilio SDK will be under the Twilio organization, and then the community projects are under Twilio Labs. So it's different. It's not officially supported by Twilio, but it is by Twilions, including myself. So to install this package, I added the package using .NET Lab package, and then I configured the JSON user secrets to make sure everything's correct. Anyway, I wanted to show you this first webhook, which is on /message. So it's using minimal APIs, and it's going to listen to a post request at the path/message, and then it's going to read the form, and then in that form you will see all the details of the text message that came in. Yeah, I have HTTP REPL here, so I'm going to run this. And when you see the HTTP request that is made to slash message, the response is this TWIML. So it says, respond with, you said ahoy. And ahoy is in this case, what would be the content of the text message? Let me share the phone number. Want to participate, text anything to this phone number and you should receive a response that says, you said whatever you said. Let me put it in the chat.
So it worked.
It worked.
I'm curious if ngrok is going to actually show.
It's going to show.
This is going to show us the webhook response in. That's probably what you're doing next, right?
Yeah, so for me, it worked as well. You can see it, but it said, you said hi, and that's what I said. Yeah, and we can take a look at what that looks like by checking out ngrok, because ngrok has this very useful web interface that's locally running when you run the command. I'm going to try to find my own phone number. Yeah, so I said hi. And so I sent this text message from this phone number. It's not actually my phone number. It's a proxy phone number. So I'm proxying this through Twilio. But these are all the information that Twilio will send to you using a form encoded body. Now, if you're using a GET request by configuring it, so here you can see it's either HTTP post or GET. If you set it as a GET request, it will be a query strings instead. Now, the TWIML that I'm creating here is quite simple. Like the messaging TWIML doesn't really have much options. It has like the message and it has redirect. Those are the two verbs that are supported. But the message can do more than just say text. It also supports parameters like from which phone number and to which phone number. You could actually chain this. So you could say another message, and then it will create multiple XML nodes. And so it's not just responding. You could, respond, but it also like forward to another person if you'd like this way by, specifying from and to which phone number that you want to send it to. But in most cases, you just want to respond to whatever incoming text messages came in. Does that make sense?
It'd be pretty weird to receive a text message from a different number than you sent it to.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I think in most cases you want to send it, in response from the phone number that was targeted. But I think it makes sense to like do this like blah blah phone number. Something like this. Just not very clear. So I received this text message from here. So I want to now pass that information to me. So I'm going to say to I think the from phone number should work. I don't know if I have that available here. So I'm just going to hard code this phone number actually. I'm going to use the Twilio CLI. Because I forgot what phone numbers I'm using. I mistyped. Should be phone numbers, plural. So these are actually from my main account. Let me go back to it. Should be able to send it to this one, and we'll also come back to. I'm going off script, so I'm a little bit chaotic all over the place.
You're fine. Just-
I think this is my proxy phone number. So if I text that again. I'm gonna have to restart my application. So, not sure if you can see this. Now I got two text messages back. First, it's just like the response from before, but I also got a text message back that said, phone number, blah, 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 sends hi. And so when, any other person texts this phone number, they'll get a response, hey, you said this. But then I will also get a text message, hey, this person said this. And so I got, I'll see your phone number and be able to respond for whatever reason I need to. Now it's not a common use case, but it is there. It's a big pickup back my thread. So that's how the first webhook works for the messaging webhook. Now, because webhooks are publicly available on the internet, not just Twilio can reach it, but really anyone, including malicious actors. So if I was doing something like I'm looking up some personal identifiable information by the phone number and then returning maybe an account balance of a bank, well, I wouldn't want somebody to just be able to circumvent Twilio, send this HTTP request directly to my endpoints and extract some person's personal information and bank account information. So what you want to do is validate that the request actually came from Twilio. And the way you can do this is by checking the headers. So here in the header of the webhook request is the Twilio signature header. And this signature header is calculated based on the body and the URL that this was sent to. So the way this is calculated is all the URL and all the parameters are all concatenated together. And then it's using HMAC, which is like some kind of hashing algorithm to then get the secret. Now, that's based on the auth token. So Twilio knows your auth token, it generates a secret. You know your auth token, you also generate a secret, and then you compare the two. And now, okay, only you and I know this, so I know that it came from Twilio, unless you accidentally leaked your auth token, in which case you should rotate it and use a new auth token. So that's what's happening. And in the Twilio SDK, there is a method to do this for you, so you don't have to write this little algorithm yourself. But in this in the Twilio.ASP.NET helper library that I'm helping maintain, we actually have MPC filters for this and endpoint filters for minimal APIs, and also request middleware. So that's what I commented out here. First, I add request validation, which is going to add some secrets, the auth token that are necessary to calculate the signature. And then this is actually the thing, the endpoint filter that will validate. And if the validation doesn't succeed, a forbidden response will be given. I'm wondering if we can actually take a peek at the code of this. So yeah, we'll calculate as valid requests. If not, it's going to be forbidden. Dig in deeper. These are the different options that you can configure using .NET configuration. So the auth token, a base URL override in case you want to change the URL that it's coming in on, and whether you want to allow local requests. Now, allow local is kind of interesting. If you want to write some unit tests, you probably don't want to generate the signature because it would be kind of inconvenient. You just want to be able to test quickly or run your tests. But if you leave this on, if you keep allowing local requests in production, then you are vulnerable to server-side request forgery. And server-side request forgery is when somebody posts like some form or something, and it contains a local host URL, and then your program makes HTTP requests to that local host URL. And now that it's an actual local host URL, since allow local is true, like it doesn't do the security validation that Twilio did. So, you know, there has to be multiple points of failure to actually be able to do this, but you know, you should not turn this on in production. Oh, that's not confusing. It's easier to read the configuration over here. So request validation, you would set it something like this. Now I already configured the auth token. I think allow local is set to false now. And then base URL override is kind of handy by default. When you use like a reverse proxy or a tunnel like ngrok, the scheme might be different. That's set on the current HTTP request, the scheme, the host name, and the port. It will use your local host scheme, port name, and host, and host name. So it might look like HTTP/localhost and then 8080, but really the requests came to this public ngrok URL, and the public ngrok URL is the one that's used to generate that Twilio signature. So that's the one your request validation has to be aware of. So you can manually configure this here. Or what I prefer doing is, let's go back. What I prefer to do is use the forwarded headers middleware, which is a middleware provided by ASP.NET Core. And what it does, it looks at the forwarded headers, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with those. Forwarded headers are headers that are configured usually by reverse proxies or by tunnels that tell you, you know, what the original hostname, port, and scheme was before it was sent to your local host machine. So the forwarded header middleware will correctly set those original values on the current HTTP request in ASP.NET. And so now the middleware for validating Twilio requests will use the correct scheme, port, and host name. That was hard to explain.
So you only need that dev.
Yeah, so if your application is deployed to some service and it's like directly binding to a public host name, it's not like in front of a reverse proxy, then you wouldn't need this. But I think a lot of applications are in front of a reverse proxy. I don't think you would have to do this if you deploy to like Azure App Service. I haven't tried it, but from my recollection, like the correct HTTP request is set by default. Like there are reverse proxies going on there, but I think it's kind of like done magically so that you don't notice it's happening. So I don't think you need forward the headers or the middleware in that case. Now there's some extra options for the middleware that you can use to just explicitly allow this only from certain hosts, from certain networks that you trust. I would recommend if you go this route in production, make sure that you add like trusted network options in here as well. So I'm going to send the same HTTP request to the public URL. Copy this in this little REPL, HTTP REPL. And it should fail because I'm not providing that header. But I'm going to have to restart my application as well. I don't have hot reload on, so let's run it again. Bad gateway. Okay, I was too impatient. All right, there we go. So now it's forbidden because this request did not come from Twilio. But when I send it to text message, it will still work. I'm going to send hi again. I should receive a response. And I get a response. So the webhook still works, but now only Twilio can send HTTP requests to it. So that's how you secure your webhooks. And this is how Twilio does it, but pretty much all webhook providers have a similar mechanism. You just have to look up the details. It will vary slightly. Right now, let's go back to the outgoing communications project. And now I'm going to comment all of this messaging stuff out. So we already went through this. Comment, save. And I can leave this running. Okay, let's see. So now I'm going to run it again, but this time everybody will receive phone calls. All right, I'm going to press any key to send calls. Oh, it says message SID. Maybe I did a copy paste.
I got a call.
Okay.
I got a call.
Yeah. I'm not sure if you can hear this. Now I'm gonna update the call as well to end it because we gotta stop this song right now. So I hit a key again and I updated the call while it's going on. And it said, I am so sorry, because I am sorry.
Well done.
So let's see how that was done. So I'm iterating over all those phone numbers again that were that came from the opt-in. And I'm creating a call resource. And just like before, I'm configuring the to and the from. But in this case, I'm providing a URL and it's going to use Twiml, similarly to before, to provide the instructions of what is supposed to happen on this call. So I'm going to click on this, copy paste and open it in the browser so we can see what those instructions are. And zoom in. So it says, in the voice of Alex, it says, thanks for trying our documentation, enjoy. And then it plays this file that's called classic.mp3. But, you know, the docs team had some fun, and this is actually the Never Gonna Give You Up song by Rick Astley. Now, the next thing I did, just a side note, you can also say Twiml and then directly put in a Twiml string in here if you like that. But by providing a URL, you kind of like, you have the data just like before. You'll receive the HTTP, you'll receive the from, to, and other data as the form encoded body. And so you could programmatically change your response as you'd like. But I went the other route for updating the calls. And so I iterated over all the existing calls and then used this Twiml to update the currently running call with I'm so sorry. And then that's the last instruction. So it ended the call. That's how that worked. Any questions about that? I changed this to call SID. That confused me. Let's see, what else do we have? Oh, I do want to show you the Twiml for voice. So actually I have a list of this here. So the voice Twiml is a lot more interesting than the messaging Twiml, because the messaging Twiml, you can like send a message and that's it. But voice Twiml, you can do like a whole bunch of things. You can say something and it will do text to speech. That's what you saw using the Alice voice. Play will play any audio file. Dial are instructions to dial phone numbers or dial voice over IP clients, and some other things that you can dial. Record to record the ongoing call. And then the recording will be placed in Twilio's API and you can download that recording later. Then Gather. Gather is one of my favorite ones. You can tell whoever you are calling to press the dial pad. So, you know, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 numbers. And when you press it, it will be posted back to your service. So you can receive a webhook request with that number that was pressed. And that way, you know, you can receive the number that was pressed. So you could build something like press 1 to do this, press 2 to do that, or press 9 to repeat instructions, etc. Now, in addition to the DTMF tones, the dial tone frequency tones, that's the numbers, you can also do voice recognition. So if you configure Gather to use speech instead, you can just talk to it, and then Twilio will use some speech recognition and post the transcribed text back also to your webhook. And then you can do different things based on whatever was said. Now to control what's happening in the voice call, you can use verbs like hang up, queue, leave, pause, redirect, refer, reject. So there's like a whole bunch of different things that you can do to control it. Now there's even some more Twiml, like conference, I think. Yeah. So this is part of the dial. So the way Twiml works generally is there's verbs, which are the first level of XML. And then the verbs, what do you want to like apply those verbs to is the nouns. So those will be like the sub XML nodes. So mostly you'll use number because you'll dial a phone number, but you could dial a conference, and that way you could like create a conference call. And then you can, you know, dial some other stuff as well. There's a very cool verb here that says pay. So you could do payments over a phone call, and it's actually PCI compliant if you would like to do it. I remember calling Five Guys in Centerville, and this is like different than all the other Five Guys. They actually have like an interactive voice response system. So it's a phone call system, and they, you know, asked with some robotic voice, you know, what do you want? And I said, yeah, a little cheeseburger. And then what toppings do you want? I said, all the way. Do you want to pay now or pay later? I said, pay later because I don't really want to pull out my credit card right now while I'm driving. But technically, you could, you know, pay over the phone if you would like to. This is the kind of system that you could build with this. And, you know, some people probably prefer talking to a human, but it's cheaper not to talk to a human. And some people actually would prefer this problem. I don't know. My voice. Let's take a look at SendGrid. And SendGrid, as I said before, it's kind of like a different beast. Oh, actually, I didn't demo the incoming. I skipped over this. So we have the incoming message webhook over here. I'm gonna hide that. And then we have the incoming voice call. So if you call the phone number again, the same phone number that you sent a text message to before, then you'll hear the word ahoy, which is one of the simplest responses you could do. But all those Twilio verbs that I showed before, you could combine together to build some really powerful interactive voice applications. All right. I think this is still running, so I'm going to call this. Let me show that phone number again. This time you're not going to get rickrolled, I promise. So it said ahoy and then it hung up. So email, back to email. I'm going to go to outgoing communication. I'm going to also comment out all of this phone calling code. To get this email. And so email is using a different SDK. The package is called SendGrid. Manage packages. It's called SendGrid. Now there's also a SendGrid.extensions.dependency injection package, and that will make it easier to add the SendGrid client to ASP.NET Core's default dependency injection container. In this case, I'm not using ASP.NET Core or any kind of dependency injection container, so I'm not using it here. So I'm getting the API key, which I got from from the SendGrid. How to get SendGrid API key. I'm not going to log in and show you how I did that. It's pretty straightforward. Okay, they don't show you screenshot here. I'll go to one of my own tutorials, which I know that has screenshots. Send mail with .NET and SendGrid. This one. So when you log into the SendGrid app, it's app.sendgrid.com. You log into your account. First, you'll need to add sender authentication, and that's to prove that you have the email address or you own the domain that you're going to send emails from. You can't just like send from random email addresses that you don't own. And then after that, after you verify that you own the email address or domain, you can create an API key. You do this by going to API keys under the settings tab. Let's see, did it show it here? Yeah, so it's settings, and then here you have API keys. And then you have the option to either have an API key with all the access, which is this first radio button. I'm trying to zoom in. I don't like MacBooks. No, it won't let me zoom in. This is the best you'll get. So there's a radio button for full access. You're able to do everything with the API that you want. I recommend clicking this restricted access and then scrolling down to mail sent, and just check this permission for your API key. Anything else you don't really need. If you do need it, go back and update it, check it. But this way you'll have the most secure API key. So I did that, and then the API key will be displayed like this. So I copied it and then configured it into my user secrets, just like the Twilio auth token. And I'm passing this API key secret to the SendGrid client. And the SendGrid client comes from the SDK. And then I'm creating a SendGrid message. And a SendGrid message is essentially one or more emails. Show you why it could be more than one emails. So in this case, the SendGrid message configures from which email address it comes, and that will be demo and demo@swamburger.net. The subject of the email and the HTML content. You can also provide plain text content, but in this case, I'm not. And then to actually send the email, you need to add the email address to the list of the to. So that's using the add to method. So I'm adding all of the email addresses that have opted in for this demo. And then I'm using the SendGrid client.send email async to actually send the email. Let me run this. And now you should receive an email. And I also set up this mailinator. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this website. It's this like public email inbox that you could use to just send some emails to, and everybody can access it. But I set up this Swamburger-demo mailinator inbox, and I can see that mailinator received the email that I sent it. So, and I think you all should have received it as well. Now, the reason I said you could send more than one email is there's a personalizations object on here. Let me fill this up. And then for each, in this list, you can create multiple personalizations. And here you can add the twos. So you could have multiple twos to the people that you want to send email address to. I'll put this again. But you could change the subject depending on to who that you're sending this to. So maybe you want to personalize, you know, based on somebody's location. Maybe greetings is not really something that people relate to. Maybe it's better to say howdy, or and then there's also this substitutions object, and this is a dictionary where you can add some data. And then I can use these substitutions inside of the template of the email. So I could say, actually, I didn't have any inspiration, but now I do. So I'm going to say name and then nails. Then it will be choose list email address. Email address, and then it will be like demo@swamburger.net. Now, when I send this email, and it could be, I think, up to 1,000 personalizations. So this is really good for bulk emailing, where you want to personalize, or even if you don't want to personalize, it's good for bulk emailing, because you only need to send one API request for an entire 1,000 emails that you want to send, instead of like 1,000 API requests. That's why the SendGrid message could be one or more email addresses. Now, I actually didn't prepare an incoming email demo, but I can show you how the opt-in for email works. So I'm going to go to the opt-in service. Show you the code that I used for all of you to opt into. So first, SendGrid supports this webhook, which is called inbound parse, and it means that email addresses to a certain email address or domain will be sent to your webhook. And to set that up, you do have to update your DNS. because the way email addresses work is based on domain names, etc. So you have to configure your DNS so that the emails are forwarded to SendGrid instead of to your normal inbox. That also means that your normal inbox is not going to receive those emails anymore. So I wouldn't recommend using an email address that already is in use or domain, but use a separate subdomain or email address. Now, once you have that configured, SendGrid will receive the email, and then SendGrid will post that as an HTTP request to your webhook, which is what's happening over here. And it's posting this also as a form encoded body. And once you have the form, you can see from who the email address came, the subject, and also all of the headers. And that's not the headers of the HTTP request, but the headers of the email. So it's actually the headers of the email is also in this form. And then I'm kind of like parsing this because ASP.NET Core, they can parse headers for you, but they don't really have like a utility to parse it if it's not part of your actual HTTP requests. So I'm kind of doing this manually by splitting by new line and then making sure that I'm splitting out by colons, etc. And most importantly, that's because I want this message ID, which is required to actually thread your responses. These are like irrelevant details, but I think it's pretty interesting. But so I'm using that message SID to add this as headers for the response message. And now because this header is present, Gmail or whatever inbox provider that's going to receive this message is going to know, oh, this message is related to this other message, so I should thread it. Otherwise, it would just be, it wouldn't be in response. So when you opted in, it responded to you, and it was in the same thread as the email that you sent. That said opt-in successful. If I didn't do this, then it would just be like a separate email and it wouldn't be threaded. Fortunately, there's not like some simple TWIML thing to respond. It would be really awesome if you could just say like response, email. But yeah, this is SendGrid. It's a little different than the rest of Twilio. But ultimately, I'm using the SendGrid SDK and I'm sending the email just like I showed you with the outgoing communication. Now, there's some other products and APIs that are interesting, in my opinion. There's a lot that I don't think is relevant for .NET developers, so I left those out. But there's some of the products I want to, tell you about. Lookup just gives you intelligence about phone numbers. So you could look up where is the location of this phone number? Is the landline? Is it a mobile phone? Because you don't want to send text messages to a landline. It's not going to work. It could also give you information like SIM swap detection. SIM swap is like an attack vector where someone would take over your phone number to receive two-factor authentication tokens, etc. So we have built-in techniques to detect whether somebody tried to SIM swap, and you could use that to not send two-factor authentication tokens if you want, because it's too risky at this point. So it's pretty useful to get those kind of intelligent features. And the way that works is we have APIs and communication between all the carriers, etc. And so we work with them to get all of this intelligence. Now, if you want to build a two-factor authentication app, you can use Verify. Now, Verify is not necessarily for two-factor authentication, but you just verify that somebody owns a phone number or somebody owns an email address or something else. But if you combine that with your normal username and password authentication, it becomes a two-factor authentication system. So you could use SMS for two-factor authentication, but as I said, it is vulnerable to like SIM swap. But if you combine it with lookup, it is actually a lot safer than what people may make you believe. Now, there's like a big issue, which maybe you've heard about on Twitter with all the commotion that Elon Musk made about how expensive two-factor authentication over SMS is. And that is partially because there's a lot of what they call SMS pumping, I think it's called, where, some malicious actors are just sending text messages or requesting two-factor authentication messages all the time. And, that costs a lot of money because you're sending those text messages as an application developer. So Elon Musk said, okay, it's too expensive. We're getting rid of SMS as a two-factor authentication method, which, it is true that other 2FA methods are more secure than SMS, but nothing is really as approachable for normal users as SMS. So I do recommend, it's a lot safer to still offer it. But it's good to have an alternative that's even more secure. Now, to prevent the SMS pumping or 2FA pumping, and I'm not sure what it was called, Verify actually has just a checkbox that says fraud guard. If you enable that, we'll detect it for you and we'll block those things. And so I can't say which company used it and saved money, but they saved hundreds of thousands of dollars by turning this new feature on. It's a popular communication app that was using this. So Elon Musk, if you're listening, hit that checkbox. Although I don't know if they use two-factor authentication from Twilio. I don't know if they use Twilio. Twilio Conversations is kind of interesting. It's an abstraction that connects multiple users together. So you could have somebody from Facebook Messenger, from WhatsApp, and from SMS all talking to each other using their channel. So if somebody sends an SMS, the other people will receive it in Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp. If somebody sends a WhatsApp message, the Facebook Messenger person will get it, and the SMS person will get it. So it's kind of like an interesting bridge. But you could also use it just to have conversations between SMS and SMS, or SMS and chat, etc. So it's just like a more intelligent API in case you need this functionality. You don't have to build it yourself. And Studio is a low-code, no-code tool where you just drag and drop different widgets, and you can build your SMS or interactive voice application like that. Let's see, maybe there's some screenshots I can show you. Yeah, it looks like this. So, not really .NET related, but sometimes you don't want to build everything yourself. And you can quickly get started with this, and maybe once it becomes too complicated, you can start putting it in .NET. All right, that's everything I have for today. As I said before, check out the blog where there's a lot of content about .NET, and my blog, swimburger.net, where there's even more content about .NET. Now, if there's anything else that you want to dive into deeper, I'm still here, and I couldn't cover everything. I already said way more than actually was planning because I'm just very chaotic in my mind. But yeah, just ask.
That's great. Thank you.
Questions? Just to give you
Sorry.
Should stop the recording in case we have informal questions.
Yeah, sure.
there's this tutorial I'm working on. I hope to publish it tomorrow, but it's gonna